On the Easter weekend of 2015, Aaron Leeson-Woolley and his fiancée Stephanie Scott should have been putting the final touches to their plans for the following week, when they would be getting married and travelling to the island of Tahiti to enjoy their honeymoon. But when Stephanie stopped replying to Aaron's texts and didn't return home after work, he knew that something had gone terribly wrong. Hello and welcome to Prash's Murder Map. In this episode we'll be looking at a heartbreaking murder that took place in a school in New South Wales, a place that should have been safe for both the students and the teachers. But how do you know if a new staff member is not what they seem? If their background checks come back clean and they don't have a criminal record? It was Sunday, 5th of April 2015, and Aaron Leeson-Woolley was uneasily waiting for a reply to his latest text message to his fiancée, 26-year-old Stephanie Scott. He wondered why she hadn't answered, but he reassured himself that she was just busy. She was an English and drama teacher at the nearby Leeton High School in New South Wales, Australia. And even though it was the first weekend of the Easter holidays, she had gone into work that morning to get things ready for the replacement teacher who would be covering her while she was away on their honeymoon. Stephanie was conscientious like that, and she was popular with the students and teachers at Leeton High, where she had worked for the last 3 years. Aaron and Stephanie were due to get married the following weekend before jetting off to Tahiti, and they couldn't wait to continue their lives together. Aaron had made a dinner reservation for them that evening, so he knew his wife-to-be would make sure she was back before then. But when he returned home at around 7 p.m, there was no sign of Stephanie, and his text went unanswered. Frantic with worry, he stayed awake all night waiting for her, desperately hoping that at any moment he would hear the key turning in the lock and she would step through the door with a smile and a logical explanation for why she had been delayed. But in each scenario that ran through his mind during the long hours of the night, he was unable to think of a good reason why she hadn't somehow managed to get in touch. First thing in the morning, he reported Stephanie missing. The police checked her bank accounts, social media and phone status and found that there had been no bank activity since Saturday when she had been shopping for their holiday. There were no social media posts since then and her phone was untraceable. There was also no sign of her red Mazda 3. Aaron drove around the area searching for her, worried that Stephanie might have been in a car accident on a remote road. Her friends used social media to appeal to people in the local area to look out for her, and the message spread all around Australia, but no leads came in. Police wondered if she could have had cold feet about her upcoming wedding, but there was never any question in the minds of her family and friends. The pair had been together since high school, and they couldn't have been happier about their plans. Although Leeton had a population of 11,000, the town felt like a small, safe community, and it was situated in an area of rich agricultural land on the edge of the Kokopara National Park. So it had a semi-rural atmosphere, and Stephanie's parents, Robert and Marilyn, lived on a farm. The disappearance of the young teacher came as a shock to everyone who knew her, and police wasted no time in launching an investigation. The police spoke to staff at Leeton High School who confirmed that Stephanie had been due to work on some lesson plans that Easter Sunday in readiness for the substitute teacher. The deputy principal had not seen anyone else at the school that day, but had spotted cleaner Vincent Stanford's Toyota Hilux in the car park. On Tuesday, 7th of April, police visited Vincent at his home in Maiden Avenue, where he lived with his mother, a little over a mile from the school. The large burly man spoke with a Dutch accent and was already balding, even though he was still in his 20s. He was employed by Colin Joss & Co., a cleaning company who had contracts with local schools, and he had been working all day at Leeton High School on Sunday, but he said he hadn't seen anyone there except for some people roller skating. He had then gone to the local supermarket before heading home. As the police officers left, Vincent wished them luck with the search. Investigators were extremely concerned about Stephanie Scott's safety. Her disappearance was completely out of character, and they were convinced that her family and fiancé were above suspicion. They had looked into them at the very beginning of the inquiry, painfully aware that in many cases the closest people are the ones responsible, but everything checked out and Aaron's alibi was watertight. Their next step was to verify Vincent Stanford's story as a matter of protocol. They felt a growing sense of unease when it became apparent that Vincent had lied about his activities on the day of Stephanie's disappearance, as the supermarket he claimed to have visited had been closed on Easter Sunday. They returned to Maiden Avenue on Wednesday, 8th of April, intending to ask him to come to the station to give a formal written statement. He wasn't at home, but his mother consented to a search of the premises. Very swiftly, the case took a startling turn. In the shed in the backyard, police found yellow masking tape, a used condom, a pair of handcuffs, and a set of keys matching the ones that Stephanie had used to access the empty school that weekend. This time, it looked like detectives would not be faced with a lengthy search for the criminal. They had already found him. Police declared the house a crime scene and questioned Vincent as soon as he arrived home. They asked him if he had been at work, to which he replied, "No, I've been out taking photographs." They searched his Toyota Hilux and found his camera along with some MDF boards smeared with blood. At 7:30 p.m, Vincent Stanford was arrested on suspicion of murder. When police turned on Stanford's camera, they saw that he had been telling the truth about taking photographs, although they could never have imagined what kind. There were multiple pictures of the badly burnt body of a female lying in a stretch of isolated bushland. Vincent claimed they were images from a horror movie which he had downloaded because he thought they were funny, which in itself was an alarming indication that the man they had arrested was not normal and likely to be extremely dangerous. The suspect's Hilux was examined by forensics, who confirmed the presence of blood on the MDF boards. They also found a knife in the vehicle along with a red bra and discovered that the GPS had recently been used to navigate to a gravel road leading to the vast and rugged Cocopara National Park. A saliva sample was taken from Vincent for DNA testing, and his computer was examined by experts who were sickened by what they found. Not only did he have an online account with a security company which sold batons, handcuffs and knives, but he had used search keywords 2 months earlier which sent a shiver down the detectives' spines. Murder, serial killer knives, murdering brides, raping child brides, and even worse, he had been researching necrophilia. The following day, Stephanie Scott's Mazda was located in a field in Wamoon, a desolate rural area about 7 miles east of Leeton. Human blood was found in the boot and on the rear bumper, adding to everyone's fears. Hopes of finding the missing teacher alive had all but vanished. On Friday 10th of April, just one day before she was meant to get married, Stephanie's burnt remains were discovered on an isolated track in Kokopara National Park by a team of police on dirt bikes. The charred body matched the images on Vincent Stanford's camera. The post-mortem findings were harrowing. There was evidence of blunt force head trauma, nasal fracture, blowout fracture, eyelid lacerations, internal bleeding in the brain, and 2 stab wounds in the neck, reaching to the spinal column. Stephanie had been beaten and stabbed to death in a sustained and ruthless attack. The following day, Vincent Stanford admitted that he had murdered the 26-year-old, and the distressing details slowly came to light. He claimed he had been working at the school on the Easter weekend because he was bored and had nothing else to do. He had arrived at around 7:30 a.m. on Sunday 5th of April and had disabled the alarm in the administration block shortly afterwards. Stephanie had arrived at around 11 a.m. and sat in the staff room working on her laptop. The staff room door was open and Vincent spotted her inside while he was cleaning out the bins. He went home to collect what he called his rape and murder kit, consisting of handcuffs, a knife and condoms, before returning to the school and unlocking the door of the storage room in preparation. He waited until Stephanie had finished her work and packed up to leave. As she walked towards the locked school gate, she saw Vincent and wished him a happy Easter. When she reached into her bag for her keys, Vincent grabbed her from behind, putting his right arm over her mouth and his left arm around her waist as he dragged her backwards towards the storage room. Stephanie screamed and struggled, trying to scratch her attacker's face and dropping her keys and laptop bag as she did so. He threw her down against some MDF boards and a locker, then shut the door before she had a chance to escape. He put his hand around her throat and hit her repeatedly until she fell, unconscious, before sexually assaulting her, then stabbing her in the neck. He was composed enough after his horrific actions to remember to pick up the belongings that Stephanie had dropped, then left her body in the storage room while he went home for lunch. When he returned to the school in the afternoon, he boldly drove his victim's Mazda closer to the main building. He lined the trunk with plastic sheeting before carrying out her body and placing it on top, then applied yellow masking tape to her neck to stem the flow of blood. He calmly returned inside and thoroughly cleaned the crime scene, then drove Stephanie's car to his home. Leaving it there, with her body still in the trunk, he returned to the school on foot to collect his own vehicle, loading it up with the blood-stained MDF boards and driving away. But he still wasn't finished. He threw Stephanie's laptop into a canal and drove her Mazda to a spot near a service station, choosing not to drive fully into the station as he knew he would be caught on CCTV. Instead, he walked into the service station, filled a jerry can with petrol and took it back to where he had left the car out of sight. He filled it with enough fuel to get to the Kokopara National Park, where he lifted her body from the trunk and laid it on the ground, straightening out her limbs from their state of rigor mortis. He removed all her clothing, placed branches over her body, poured petrol on top and set it alight, before taking 6 pictures of the appalling aftermath. Utterly undisturbed by either his outrageous act of violence or what he had done to cover it up, he drove the Mazda back to his house, where he removed the plastic trunk liner and the jerrycan and changed his clothes. Finally, he abandoned the Kainua Moon and walked the 2 hours back into town, then dumped the rest of Stephanie's belongings into public trash bins stored in his wardrobe. He then posted her driving license and engagement ring, which he had removed from her body, to his twin brother Marcus in South Australia. He sent Marcus a text to let him know the items were coming, which read, "I'm going to send an envelope to you. Keep it safe for me. Let me know when you receive it." The only thing he retained was Stephanie's bra. A sinister smile crossed his lips when investigators asked why he had kept it, and he answered that it was a souvenir to remember her. He made eye contact with his interviewers throughout the questioning and showed no hint of remorse. Police travelled to interview Marcus Stanford, who denied receiving anything from his twin brother, but they seized his mobile phone and found that not only had he been reading the latest news about Stephanie Scott, but he had also been searching for how to sell diamond engagement rings. Police found a business card in his possession for a store called Adelaide Exchange Jewellery and learned that he had sold Stephanie's ring there for $705 Australian dollars. The twins and their brother Luke had been born in Australia, but the family had moved to Holland when Marcus and Vincent were 3 years old, although their father had later moved back to Australia while the rest of the family stayed in Holland. There had been signs from an early age that Vincent had serious issues. At the age of 12, he was expelled from his school for grabbing a teacher by the throat, and he had a history of getting into fights with other pupils. After his expulsion, he was sent to a centre for adolescents with violent behavioural problems and was enrolled into a school for children with special educational needs until he was 16. After leaving school, his college application to study IT was turned down, so he tried to join the army but was rejected due to his lack of social skills. He worked as a cleaner for 5 years but continually fantasised about killing his manager. Rather than seeking help, he quit his job, and Vincent, Luke and their mother returned to Australia in 2014 to join Marcus, who had moved back there the year before. Vincent's work as a school cleaner for Colin Joss & Co. meant that he didn't have to speak to many people, as he worked a split shift from 3:30 a.m. to 8:30 a.m. and then 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. This suited him, as he was not a sociable man and spoke to nobody beyond his immediate family, although he appeared friendly on the surface to his neighbours. He had managed to convince the cleaning company that he was well-mannered with all the relevant training, and he passed the police checks enabling him to work in schools as he had no prior criminal record. Not long after he started working for the cleaning company, he began indulging in his fantasies of stalking young girls. He found access codes for Leeton High's security system by rummaging through the janitor's desk, which allowed him to disable the alarm. He was sometimes spotted in areas where he had no business to be, including the girls' bathroom, where he would pretend to be cleaning while surreptitiously watching them as they entered and exited the cubicles. He took pictures of schoolgirls on his phone at every opportunity and developed a particular fascination with a 12-year-old called Joanne. He kept a diary, recording the time she left her house and when she returned, and wrote a note to himself which ominously read, "Home alone 3:40 p.m, time enough to abduct." He knew the car registration numbers of Joanne's father and grandfather and amassed over 1,800 photos of her, which he kept on his computer, to which he added a picture of her with her dance group that he stole from the school notice board. Vincent admitted he had an urge to abduct and kill Joanne, explaining that he felt hatred towards her and a need to destroy her. He also liked to draw lurid pictures of women with knives in their bodies. Joanne was not Stanford's only obsession, as he had also taken a series of photographs of a supermarket worker named Gillian and another teacher from Leeton High School. Vincent told police that he had struggled to suppress his desires and felt that he had done well not to have killed anyone before now. He confessed that when he saw Stephanie Scott, a feeling had come over him. He said, "I had to kill her. I wasn't angry or anything, basically emotionless, just that I had to kill her. He admitted to having always struggled with violent thoughts about killing people and said in a gross understatement, "I think I might have mental problems." Vincent Stanford was sentenced to 15 years for aggravated sexual assault and life without parole for murder. His twin brother Marcus was charged for accessory after the fact and was sentenced to 1 year and 3 months in prison. Marcus insists he no longer has anything to do with his brother, and their father has used strong words about his son, saying, "I don't want to call him, I don't want to sit down with him, I don't want anything to do with him. I don't know why he did it, I never asked why he did it, and to be honest, I don't want to know. He didn't get it from my genes, and he didn't get it from his mother's genes." At Stephanie's memorial service, everyone wore yellow, as it was her favourite colour. Robert Scott spoke movingly about his daughter to the crowds of people gathered to pay their respects. He said, "Stephanie was a bubbly, bright, witty, intelligent, fun-loving girl who has obviously impacted on many people here today, and our wishes for the future are that this will continue in your minds. You remember her as the girl she was, and I'm sure wherever she is now that she would wish that to be the case. Maintain that as you remember her as that great little girl she was." Everyone attending the memorial released yellow balloons, watching as they drifted into the air like happy little bursts of smiles and love flying up towards Stephanie, heart-wrenching in their symbolism of loss, but defiant in their brightness as they announced a resounding refusal to let the actions of her killer taint the happy memories of her life. Thank you for listening to this episode of Prash's Murder Map. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe and leave a review wherever you get your podcasts. This case was taken from my true crime book, Murder Casebook, Volume 2. For news about my books and free true crime blog posts, check out my website, www.prashganandran.com, details of which you will find in the show notes. I really appreciate your support, and I'll see you again soon.